in the Masjid al-Nabawi? No. Because, like we said, moving up financially, developing financially, the Muslim will always and should always develop financially. He should always develop physically. He should always develop mentally. He should always develop spiritually. We should always try to improve daily, even if it's something small. And this is something that is encouraged. And sometimes this gets confused with how we deal with each other, how we deal with the masjid, and how we deal with some of these Islamic services. But we'll talk a little bit about that, because we have to make sure and we have to define. And there's a brother Shakil, he gave me this saying, and I always liked it. He said there's a difference between fi sabilillah and free sabilillah. Unfortunately, we have trouble making that distinction. So concerning how we have that worldly balance and how is it that we are supposed to spend this wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَابْتَغِي فِيمَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Seek the life to come by means of what Allah has granted you, but do not neglect your rightful share in this world. Do good to others as Allah has done good to you. Do not seek to spread corruption in the land, for Allah does not love those who do this. It's a very powerful ayah. Very powerful ayah. That why should we be good to others? Because Allah is good to us. Very simply. And this is our way of being thankful to Him Azza wa Jalla. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the one that does not thank a people has not thanked Allah. And I pondered over this hadith. I thought it was a very powerful hadith. That why is it the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said this? And then I realized that the individual who is giving me money, or the individual that's feeding me, or the individual that's giving me a ride, he's doing all of these things, and I'm seeing him do all of these things in front of me with my own eyes. And I'm still so stingy after seeing these things that I'm not willing to thank Him. Like, what about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sometimes works in mysterious ways, in ways that I can't even comprehend, or ways that I can't even directly see? How much more stingy am I going to be with that? And it really, subhanAllah, it hit me. That an individual who cannot thank the blessings that are given in front of him, that are done for him, immediately in front of his eyes, how is he going to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that created him, the one that provides for him? And not only that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us guidelines on how we should spend our wealth and how we should be with it. He Azza wa Jal says, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ فَتَقْعُدَ مَلُومًا مَحْسُورًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says here, He says, do not keep your hand. He basically, if you, a word by word translation would be, do not tie your hand or do not chain your hand to your neck. And do not spread it completely. Do not open it completely, so that you sit there blamed and destitute. So what does Allah mean here? Does He mean that there's people walking around like this and people walking around like this? Huh? What is He talking about? This is a beautiful metaphor.
Don't be so mean and don't spend stupid.
Absolutely. Don't be stingy. Yani, don't be stingy. And you love yourself so much that you refuse to take money out of your pocket. And don't spend everything in your hands. Otherwise you're going to sit what? Maluman, mahsura. Blamed and destitute. So the only person to blame when you spend all of your money is who? Yourself. You can't blame anyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, look, this is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us financial advice. He's telling us how we should be with our money, very clearly. And don't be cheap, and don't be a spendthrift. You have to maintain that balance. This is something that's extremely, extremely important. And one of the questions I like asking different congregations is the difference between the salah of two people. You have two people praying immediately next to each other. One of them has a paycheck coming. He's already paid his rent. He's already paid his bills. And he knows at the end of this month he's going to have a little bit of money in his pocket. Not a lot. He'll have a little bit of money. The one next to him, he doesn't know how he's going to make it this month. Is there going to be a difference in their salah or no?
No.
No? It's going to be the same?
It's going to be no different.
It's going to be different.
Yes.
How is it going to be different?
So the one that without the money
Don't-
will be thinking about Allah more.
Okay.
That's like one keeps right.
He'll either be thinking about Allah more or he'll be thinking about his rent more, right?
That's true.
I think it will differ in terms of one will be more grateful and the other one could be more in need, so he will make more haja. I mean, there are different ways
Okay.
of looking at it.
I mean, there are a number of ways of looking at it. But in general, the one who is financially secure, and we're talking about the general Muslim here. Yani, do we have people who are muttaqi regardless of their financial situation? Yes, absolutely. I remember I was sitting with one of my mashayikh, he was saying, subhanAllah, one of the amazing things about the Muslims, and we'll get back to that point, but just a side note, one of the amazing things about the Muslims is that even during times of persecution, you still had major academic works being produced. And this goes against like the Sunnah al-Kawn, like how mankind actually works. You would think that you would have advancements in civilization when civilization is flourishing, right? When there's a time of peace, when there's flourishing, that you would have all of these academic works that are being produced. But we have many, Imam Mizzi, Ibn Kathir, Al-Dhahabi, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Al-Qayyim. When did these individuals live? They lived around the 700s Hijri. What was going on at that time? Does anybody know?
Crusades, maybe?
The Mongol invasion. The Mongol invasion. The Mongols, they came and they destroyed the library of Baghdad, and Bayt al-Hikmah, which was the biggest library in the world. And they were just ravaging the Muslims. And you have some of the greatest academic works in all of the sciences being produced at that time. And just a small example today. There are still academic works being produced. Can you even imagine where? In the West Bank of Palestine. And I'm still amazed by this. But so one of my mashayikh had written a book on Mustalah. It's called Manhaj al-Muqtara. And he said some Palestinians, they came to him and they said, Wallahi, the Sheikh, the book that you wrote, it's really caused huge waves for us in Palestine, in the West Bank. So the Sheikh was like, he's like, man, the missiles should be causing waves for you guys. He said, you're worried about my book. And this is just a small example. I mean, I'm saying if we take this as a small example, that the financial, economic, social, all of these different types of oppression that are happening to these individuals, they're still producing these Islamic works. They're still studied. So what about throughout our history? And this is something very unique to Islam. This is something that is very unique to Islam. That even under all this oppression, even under all these individuals, you still had people who were gold mines of knowledge, gold mines of wara, of piety, and of religiosity. But going back to the average Muslim, this is one of the reasons that we have these social and these financial security nets for these people. Because we don't want an individual to be worried about his rent. We don't want an individual to be worried about his gas bill or his electric bill. Because in general, a person who is financially secure, it is easier for him to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does this not mean that an individual won't remember Allah? No, absolutely not. But the idea is to try to remove as many distractions as we can. So will we have the exceptions? Yes, absolutely. And there might be people who are suffering of cancer, going through chemotherapy, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us and our families, and to heal those who are dealing with this trial and tribulation. But there might be individuals from amongst them, and their worship is better than a person who's completely upright, a person who's completely sound and completely healthy. But in general, the less distractions we have, the easier it is to focus on worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, just 3 guidelines, and unfortunately there's not a lot of time, but maybe we can split this into 2 parts. So this was just meant to be like a worldly discussion. Inshallah, next time we can actually talk about how it is that we focus our efforts on these religious commitments. But right now we'll just talk about the worldly ones, and we'll close with this. They're based on these ayat and based on these ahadith. It's important to keep in mind a few things and a few principles that we can keep and utilize in our lives. Number 1, whatever it is that we're doing, whatever job that we have, try to make sure that it is halal. This is the first and most important thing. And I know we live in a world where, regardless of what we do, it's going to be tainted. There's going to be a tinge to it. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ittaqullah mastata'tum." Says, be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of your ability. Do the best you can in whatever field it is, whatever job you have. And if you really feel that you are doing something, or you're in a field, or you're in a job that's haram, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for you to find the job that is halal. But just be active in striving for that. The mistake that some of us make is like, okay, well, I feel like I'm in a haram job, or I'm in a haram field, and I can't do anything else. Well, try. Reach out. I'm not telling you to leave your job. Please don't do that. Keep that job, but keep actively looking for something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says very clearly, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. That whoever keeps consciousness of Allah, who is always constantly aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will make a way for him, وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And He will make a way for him that he would have never have imagined. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. In whatever job that we have, try to make sure that that job is fulfilling. Personally. If whatever job it is that we do, even if I don't enjoy the field, there are certain aspects of something that we will all enjoy, regardless of what that job is. So try to take advantage of those things that we enjoy. Because there's not going to be a job where you enjoy 100% of the responsibilities that are associated with it. And that's something I can definitely agree with. So try to find those aspects of your job that are fulfilling, and take fulfillment in that, and take pride in that, and take enjoyment in that. Because the last thing our families want to see when we come home from work is a frown or being upset. Sometimes the jobs, they take a toll on us. There's no doubt about that. But our families, what did they do to deserve the brunt of that? Or our anger, or the fact that we're upset, or that we ran into someone, or I got into an argument with someone at work. Well, my son or my daughter or my wife, they had no idea what I experienced at work that day. And they don't deserve to receive the repercussions of that. So, Rami, he comes to our masjid, once a month, and Jazakallah khair. And he also made that point, if an individual needs time to kind of mentally prepare himself for coming home, then take that time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. Just take that time so that you are prepared to meet your family. Because they're not deserving of those things. If anything, mentally make it like a second job. Be like, okay, so my second shift is starting now. And try to put on the best face you can. Because even the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say about his family? All of the stress, all of the issues, the state issues, the religious responsibility that he ﷺ had. Imagine if he came home to Aisha or Khadija or to Sa'ad or Juwayriya or any of his wives and he was upset. If anybody had the right to be upset, it was him ﷺ. But he wasn't. He said about himself, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ. So the best of you is the one that is best to his family, and I am the best to my family. And implying and telling us that take me as an example. So this is something that's very important we need to keep in mind. And the last point, and we'll close with this, that whatever we do and whatever we decide to do, try to make sure it's balanced. I still remember now, at this age, with 4 children of my own, I don't remember how much money my father made. I don't. I don't remember the times we ate better or the times we ate worse. And we did see some hard times. But I do remember the amount of time he spent with me. I do remember him taking me out. I do remember him playing soccer with me. These are things I remember very specifically and very categorically. Some of the traps that we fall into is we think, okay, well, I need to earn more money to give a better life for my family. Our wives and our children, they don't necessarily care about that. They do care about spending time with us. And we need to make sure that we're balanced. And it doesn't mean that we should give all of our time to them. But it also doesn't mean that we should give no time to them.